Fan theories have always been a fascinating part of pop culture. They take the shows we grew up loving, the cartoons we watched on Saturday mornings in our pajamas, and they twist them into something darker, something that makes you question everything you ever believed about those colorful characters. Some theories are easy to dismiss. Others stick with you. They crawl under your skin and refuse to leave because no matter how hard you try, you can't find a flaw in the logic. Today we're diving deep into 5 of the darkest cartoon fan theories that not only exist, but actually hold up under scrutiny. These aren't random internet conspiracies. These are carefully constructed arguments that, once you hear them, permanently change the way you see these classic shows. Buckle up. Your childhood is about to be dismantled piece by piece. 1. Rugrats. The children were never real. The beloved baby adventure show hides a devastating secret about grief and mental illness. Rugrats was one of the defining cartoons of the 1990s. Millions of children tuned in every week to watch Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, and Angelica go on wild adventures, all seen through the imaginative eyes of toddlers who could barely walk or talk. It was colorful, funny, and endlessly creative. But underneath all that cheerful chaos, there's a theory so dark it reframes every single episode you've ever watched. The theory goes like this: none of the babies are real. Every single one of them is a figment of Angelica's deeply troubled imagination, born from a childhood defined by neglect, trauma, and profound loss. Think about it. Angelica is the only child in the show who can communicate with both the babies and the adults. She exists in both worlds simultaneously, which seems odd if you stop to think about it. Why can she understand and talk to the babies when no adult can? Because she invented them. According to this theory, each baby represents a personal tragedy. Tommy Pickles was a stillborn child. His father Stu never recovered from the loss, which is why we so often see him in the basement, manically building toys. Toys for a son who never lived to play with them. Chucky died alongside his mother, which explains why his father Chaz is such an anxious, broken wreck of a man constantly haunted by invisible fears. Phil and Lil DeVille were aborted fetuses. Angelica didn't know the gender, so she imagined twins, one of each. Their mother, Betty's aggressive, masculine personality is her way of coping with the guilt of her decision. And then there's the cruelest layer of all, Angelica herself. Her mother, Charlotte, died of a drug overdose when Angelica was very young. Her father, Drew, buried his grief in work and materialism, spoiling his daughter with everything except attention. Angelica, starved of love, starved of real connection, invented an entire world of baby companions to fill the void. The show we watched as children wasn't a comedy about adventurous toddlers. It was the internal landscape of a deeply traumatized little girl, playing alone in her imagination, desperately pretending she had friends. 2. The Fairly Odd Parents. Timmy's fairies are a cry for help. What looks like a magical adventure might actually be the delusion of a severely neglected child. The Fairly Odd Parents gave us one of the most wish-fulfilling premises in cartoon history. A 10-year-old boy named Timmy Turner has 2 magical fairy godparents, Cosmo and Wanda, who grant him any wish he desires. The show was built on the fantasy of unlimited power, the idea that a kid nobody takes seriously can secretly reshape reality with a poof and a wish. It was escapist television at its finest, until you look closer. The theory here is both simple and devastating. Cosmo and Wanda don't exist. They are psychological constructs, coping mechanisms created by Timmy's mind to survive an upbringing defined by neglect and emotional abandonment. Consider the facts of Timmy's life as the show actually presents them. His parents are chronically distracted, self-absorbed adults who routinely forget he exists. They leave him constantly in the care of Vicky, a babysitter who psychologically torments him on a daily basis. His teachers humiliate him. His classmates bully him. He is, by every objective measure, a child in crisis. The rules surrounding Timmy's fairies become especially telling when you view them through this lens. He can't tell anyone about Cosmo and Wanda. If he does, he loses them forever. Think about what that rule means in the context of a child's psychology. It mirrors exactly the kind of secret-keeping that isolated, abused children engage in. They create elaborate internal worlds and protect them fiercely because those imaginary worlds are the only place they feel safe, the only place they feel loved. The moment Timmy would tell, meaning seek real help, open up to a real adult, the fantasy collapses, the walls come down, and that's simply too terrifying to consider. Cosmo's incompetence and Wanda's worry take on new meaning too. Cosmo represents the reckless, careless, wishful thinking of a desperate child. Wanda is the voice of Timmy's own suppressed anxiety, always warning him that his wishes will backfire, because deep down he knows none of this is real and nothing is actually getting better. The entire show is one long, colorful dissociation episode. 3. Courage the Cowardly Dog. Courage is actually a normal dog. The most frightening show in cartoon history might actually have the most grounded reality of them all. Courage the Cowardly Dog was never shy about being terrifying. It was openly, deliberately dark. A show about a small pink dog living in the middle of nowhere with his elderly owners Muriel and Eustace, constantly facing supernatural horrors. It always seemed like a stylized nightmare world. But what if it wasn't stylized at all? What if everything in the show is completely mundanely real? The theory is elegantly simple. Courage isn't a cowardly dog in a world full of monsters. Courage is a completely normal dog in a completely normal world. The monsters are just people, strangers, con artists, dangerous individuals, seen through the eyes and the natural fear responses of a small domesticated animal. Dogs cannot rationalize. They cannot distinguish between a traveling salesman and a serial killer. Every unfamiliar person who approaches the house is, from Courage's perspective, an incomprehensible threat. Think about the geography. Muriel and Eustace live in the middle of nowhere, a genuinely isolated rural area. The kind of people who show up at a house that remote aren't always wholesome. Some of the monsters in the show, when stripped of their exaggerated cartoon design, look remarkably like human predators. Manipulative strangers, cult figures, people with intentions that a dog could sense but never understand. Courage's inability to communicate with his owners becomes tragic rather than comedic. He frantically tries to warn them. He runs, he whimpers, he schemes in the way that only a terrified animal can. And Muriel, sweet and trusting, and Eustace, stubborn and oblivious, ignore him every single time. The horror of the show isn't supernatural at all. It's the horror of being a small, voiceless creature trying to protect the people you love from a world you don't have the language to explain. 4. Toy Story. Sid's toys were never broken. They were survivors. The villain of the first Toy Story might actually be the most misunderstood character in Pixar history. From the moment we meet Sid Phillips in the original Toy Story, we're meant to see him as the villain. He's loud, destructive, and cruel. A kid who takes genuine pleasure in dismembering toys and reassembling them into grotesque hybrids. He's the boogeyman next door, the dark counterpart to Andy's wholesome toy-filled bedroom. But a closer reading of the film, one that pays attention to how Sid's mutant toys actually behave, reveals something extraordinary. Sid's toys never hurt him. Despite being these horrifying, disfigured creations, a baby doll, head on spider legs, a torso with gun appendages, they consistently act as helpers. They hide when Sid is dangerous. They work together. They show loyalty and protectiveness toward each other. They behave in every meaningful sense like a family that has been through trauma together and emerged bonded by survival. The theory proposes that Sid's toys aren't broken, they're adapted. They've been through hell, literally torn apart and put back together, and they've reorganized themselves in whatever configuration allows them to survive in their environment. Sid's room is a war zone, and these toys evolved to navigate it. The darkness of his room, the chaos of his behavior, they've built a community around enduring it. What makes this theory genuinely devastating is what it implies about Sid himself. A child who destroys toys with that level of systematic intensity isn't simply mischievous. Child psychologists consistently identify cruelty to objects, particularly objects that represent living things, as a response to experiencing cruelty at home. Sid may not be the monster. Sid may be a child expressing in the only way available to him something he has no words for. And the toys, the ones we were taught to fear alongside Woody and Buzz, have been quietly watching over him all along. 5. Pokemon. Professor Oak is manipulating an entire generation. The kindly old professor who started Ash's journey might be the most dangerous figure in the entire Pokemon world. Professor Oak is presented as the benevolent grandfather figure of the Pokemon universe. He's wise, warm, and endlessly supportive of young trainers beginning their journeys. He hands out starter Pokemon, conducts research, and serves as a steady guiding presence throughout Ash's adventures. He is, by all appearances, entirely trustworthy. This theory argues he is anything but. Consider the world Oak operates in. The Pokemon universe is populated by children, 10-year-olds specifically. who are sent out into dangerous wilderness, expected to battle creatures with elemental powers, and are essentially unsupervised for years at a time. This isn't presented as unusual, it's the foundation of the entire society. And Professor Oak is one of the primary architects of that system. The theory's darkest pivot involves Oak's relationship with Ash's father, who is conspicuously, completely absent from the entire series. We are given no explanation. Ash's father is simply gone, and neither Ash nor his mother Delia ever meaningfully addresses it. Oak, meanwhile, has an unnervingly close relationship with Delia. He is constantly present in her life. He is the one who convinces her, or at minimum endorses the decision, to send her 10-year-old fatherless son alone into the world. Look at what Oak actually tells Ash on the day of departure. He gives him a Pokédex and frames the entire journey as a research mission. Ash is to document Pokemon for Oak's benefit. He has monetized and institutionalized child adventure, turning an entire generation of unsupervised 10-year-olds into an unpaid data collection network. The gym system, the league, the badges, it's an elaborate structure that keeps children engaged, directs their energy outward, and ensures they never come home asking difficult questions. Professor Oak doesn't fear the wild. He relies on it to keep the children occupied and the adults undisturbed. The reason these theories resonate so deeply isn't because they're cruel, it's because they're honest. Great storytelling, even when aimed at children, contains real human darkness compressed beneath cheerful surfaces. The grief of a parent, the loneliness of a neglected child, the fear of a voiceless creature, the trauma of a boy acting out. These are real things, and they find their way into art whether the creators intended or not. These theories work because they tap into something that was always there, buried just deep enough that we could enjoy the colors and the music without having to look directly at it. Now you've looked. Sleep well.